Hello there. Peace, my brothers. All right, I'm going to try to do this as quickly as possible. Just a little short tutorial on why using the editor is so cool. Now, you can find the editor at RolandBoss.com. You can find the editor, the editing software for it. The reason that I like this so much, right, and I keep this, I use my ME-80 almost exclusively for the studio, okay, in my studio where I'm at right now. So it's always plugged in, right, via USB. You got to have a USB cable. You got to have the editing software. Mine's always plugged in, always. I do have two other processors that, you know, I might bring the ME-80 with me to a jam session or whatever, but I've got a couple simple processors. I can just plug into my amp and go, and they're fine. I use mine specifically in the studio, and I want the minute ability to change a specific effect, you know, easily, and then store it. And then not only store it, but store it in certain locations. I do have a live set of patches stored in my editing software, so that if I do want to take it out and go play live, then I'll just switch everything over to the live set. Okay, what you're seeing right now on the screen, this is a basic patch. It's a Joe Satriani patch that I came up with a few months ago. Everything is on here. Well, no, that's not true. I've got, I'm not using, you're hearing a reverb in the background, but I'm not using the reverb from the ME-80 because I'm not really intensely impressed with it. I'm just not. It's very two-dimensional. I bought an outboard reverb called the FX2000 or the Virtualizer 3D. And it's just got much better reverbs and delays and, you know, that kind of stuff. I do use the delays fairly often with the ME-80. The only thing I don't use that I don't really care for is the reverb from the ME-80. But other than that, man, it's an excellent pedal. What you see up at the top here, you see the little mouse moving. Analog delay. Here's my settings for the analog delay right there, right? I wanted to go for a more kind of analog 80s sort of sound. I'm using a clean amp, and I'm using a metal distortion for the distortion. For instance, Satch in the old days used a, watch me forget it, no, a JCM 120 with Boss pedals. He used the Boss heavy metal pedal, and he used the Boss distortion pedal for a lot of his earlier sounds. So I'm getting that, almost that same sound. The clean amp, I believe, is based off of a JCM 120. So, you know, no big deal. As you can see, the reason I like the editor so much is that I'm able to go in and get precisely what I want by making the adjustments on the individual things that I have selected on or off, okay? I've set up the hall reverb, but I'm not using it. I've got a compressor set up, and the way this patch works for me is I'll turn off, I'll put it in manual mode, I'll turn off the metal distortion, and I'll turn on the compressor, and I'll get, that's one easy way for me to get a good clean sound, right? It's not very loud. I don't think I have the amp up very loud. I might not. Let me turn the level. It's the compressor. I've got the level on the compressor down. And again, without having to bend over and access the pedal, there it is. Then when I want that lead sound, I'll kick off the compressor and I'll kick on the distortion. And it might be that I had my ME-80 a little bit too low. That's why that clean sound was a little bit low. I think that's what it was. We'll kick that off. We'll kick that off. I'm going to turn my... That's much better. The compressor works really well for my clean tones. I use it on almost all of my clean tones. This is a decent compressor. It's decent. It lacks a little. There's a specific sound I was looking for. I'm a huge Queensryche fan, and I was looking for that hard compression from some of the early Queensryche albums. And this one's close, but it's just not quite right. You know what I mean? It's pretty good. All right, little rush there. I like using the editor. I can name the patches. When I look down at my ME-80, it doesn't give me any information really about what the patch is, right? And I have a hard time memorizing, what each patch is for. I started at first, I would set them up with the first patch in the bank, right, would be a hard distortion. The second patch would be a milder distortion. The third patch would be a milder, even still distortion, and then a clean sound. And I grouped them that way so that I would kind of always know which was which. But I never knew what specific era or genre I was picking from. So I leave mine plugged in and in my studio all the time. And if you look over here, let's go to the left. Okay, you see over here, there's the names of all my patches. There's the Satriani patch. I've got a Jeff Beck patch, Stevie Ray Vaughan patch. This is a song I'm writing called Crazy on the Inside. There's the patch that I'm using for that. This is for when I plug my acoustic amp into the ME-80, and boy, does it sound good. Holy crap, does it sound good. U2 5150, a nice Van Halen sound with the, let me turn the harmonist on and make sure that I get that right. That's a good representation of Eddie's tone from the 5150 and later, some of the later albums as well. So what I like about this, really, the editing software, is you can go get banks of patches from, the Boss Tone Studio website. And I downloaded over here. Let's go over to the left. Right here, we're on Editor. You see that right there? It says Editor. We go to Librarian, and I've already got some patches stored in here. I go to Librarian, and there we go. Look at this. Look at all these right here. These are all the patches that I downloaded from this one specific person. I forget his name, Josh something. These are all the same, the patches that are on Tone Studio. And what I do is I'll take them and I'll turn it on, and then I'll listen to it, and I'll try it with, whatever guitar I happen to have handy. And usually it's my Ibanez. But I'll try it, and if I don't like it, at least I've got a bass line to start with. And then I will let's do, for instance, let's go to Foxy Lady, right there. Now, I've clicked on that. Now I go back over to Editor. I can actually look at that patch as that person created it, right there. There, and you see up at the top, it says Foxy Woman, right? Basic stuff. It's got a JTM 45 sim. It's got the classic Hendrix fuzz. It's got EQ, and it's got some reverb. It's pretty simple, right? And we'll listen to it, and it's close, but for me, they're never quite perfect. I'm always tweaking, right? That's really low. That's because the amp level is really low, right? And again, without having to bend over and fiddle with knobs and still be able to use it with my feet if I want, I can just do this, and it's a little too hot. Let's back that off to about 65. That's not bad. Now let's listen to it. And it may not be quite right. It's a good start, but it's a little too much. Something's just not working with it. For me personally, it's just not working. The first thing I always do, if it has an EQ, the first thing I do is I turn the EQ off. I would say that right now the fuzz is probably my main problem. Okay, my fuzz is probably the main problem. And what I'll do is I'll turn the EQ off so that now I'm only listening to the EQ from the fuzz pedal. That's better. Actually, I think I can live with that right there. Turning the EQ off. Just that simple, right? And then to store it, right? Let's say that I want to store that in one of my own patches. I hit right, and then I select which patch bank and which patch number that I want to store it in. It's so easy. Let's go to a different one. Let's go back to librarian. We'll take a look at one that I thought was going to work for me, but it just didn't work. And where is it? Panama. There it is, right there. The sound, Eddie Van Halen's sound on 1984 is that's my holy grail, man. That's Mount Everest for me. I get that right, I've done something. Now, I tried this one, but it didn't really work kind of as well as I hoped it would, so I wound up changing it. We'll go to editor and we'll take a look at it. All right, here it is. Oh, wait. Something else is, oh, yeah, it's down an octave. That's what it is. There we go. Now that's close. There's nothing really. See now, the stuff that's turned on in here, it's got single to humbucker turned on. Well, I don't need that. I've got a humbucker, so I don't need to worry about that. I turned off the octave. I would turn off the reverb because I don't generally use the reverb, like I said. But here's the basic sound, and the stack is just that JTM 45 again, the plexi head, and got the gain up kind of high, right, with EQ here, but I mean there was something really missing from it. It wasn't quite brown enough. You know what I mean? That brown sound that everyone kind of talks about. Well, I took this patch as a baseline and then changed it completely. And we'll come over here to the left, and I'll look for it. It's in here somewhere. Right down here, 1984. I wanted that classic Eddie sound. That classic brown sound. This is what I came up with. And let me turn the reverb off, because I've already got reverb going. I did the stack, and I added a boost, okay? But I also turned on the EQ and tweaked it until I thought I had precisely what I wanted for it, right? And I was using Panama as my bass line, right? I'm listening to Panama on the headphones while I'm creating this patch. And I'm messing it up. Don't worry about the playing so much, but the sound is there. The thing that always struck me about Eddie's Brown sound, and I don't want to really talk too much about the patch, but what struck me about that Brown sound was on the low end, it broke up even more. And the patch that I got from the download didn't quite do that. It was still a little too clean. I wanted that low end to sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Just, it needed to break a little bit. Right there. There's a little bit more breakup on the low end, and that's intentional through my EQ and the EQ on the amp. I brought the EQ on the amp up higher than I would normally do the bass. I brought the bass up a little higher than normal, but I kept it fairly low here. And I went for, so what I wound up doing was I used the stack for the bass, I used the EQ for the highs. And the combination of the two really made that sound work. I mean, I love it. I mean, I absolutely love it. Here's another one here. Here it breaks up, the low end breaks up a little bit, and that's what I wanted out of it. That was so much easier to do with the editor than I could have done, you know, with it sitting in front of me or slumped over it, sitting on the floor. I'm kind of old, and sitting on the floor is not as comfortable for me as it used to be. That's one of the reasons that I prefer the editor, right? If I take it in jam, you know, if I go play out or whatever, I keep one of these little notebooks in my pocket at all time when I'm using the pedal out live, and I'll just make little notes about what worked for this patch. You know, bank 1 patch 3 needs this, or bank 3 patch 4 needs this, and then I'll come home, plug it into the editor, and then goof around until I get exactly what I want. The editor, without the editor, I honestly don't think I would have been able to get that Brown sound as good as I actually did. So, and it was so much easier to just come in here, you look on the screen, watch the mouse. It's so much easier to come in here and make these little minor adjustments. Sometimes they're big adjustments, sometimes they're minor adjustments. But, you know, and you can download banks of patches, right? I was looking for artist patches at the time. I play in a cover band, so I was looking for artist patches. I wanted Pink Floyd and Stevie Ray Vaughan, and I wanted Eddie Van Halen, and all these different sounds. And it was so much easier to just download the bank, right? in my librarian over here, we hit librarian, there's the stuff that I have right there. There's Queen, everything, look, there's Bon Jovi, you know what I mean, Cult of Personality, Pink Floyd, where's the other one? There's the Hendrix stuff up at the top, right? These are what I was looking for, artist patches. And then I, again, like I said, I click on the patch, and then I go over to editor, and I take a look at the patch, and what I like I keep, and what I don't I change, okay? That's the number one reason why I've got this editor right there. That, and it's always plugged into my studio, always. So when I'm recording, if something doesn't quite work, I'll record something and then I'll listen back to it, and if it doesn't quite work, I'll go make a minor change to whatever that patch was, and then I'll record it again. I spend a lot of time doing that, unfortunately. It wastes time, but I want to get the perfect sound, and the easiest way for me to get the perfect sound is with the editor, okay? You should download the editor, get yourself a MIDI cable, plug it into your computer, and then take a look at what you have stored. And you can, what I find that I like, honestly, one of the things I like most about this is that I can group my patches together, right? Here's bank 1, right, from 1 to 4. Here's bank 2 from 1 to 4, okay? There's some Rush in there. There's Van Halen. There's U2. There's my acoustic amp settings. This is the bomb for me. I use it all the time. If you're not doing it, you should give it a shot. It's not that difficult, man. It's laid out pretty much exactly like your board is. It's laid out exactly like your pedal is. Everything comes, you know, in its own specific block, and then you make changes to whatever you want, and everything is fine. So, all right, my brothers, try it out. Trust me, you're going to like it. All right, peace.